From the fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm Chris Gio. I will be taking you beyond the veil this evening. I'm joined, of course, by my lovely wife and co-pilot, Mrs. Gio.
Good evening, everyone.
And we have an incredible show for you today. As soon as I can get Mrs. Gio's camera adjusted, we're going to talk about the Astroworld situation. We're going to talk about the Astroworld situation with somebody who has been telling us about this soul harvesting for a long time. I didn't believe her at first, although she did pique my interest. And once I really started to examine these massive events and look back in my own past, I started to realize there was something to it. And then this Astroworld thing just pushed it over the edge for me. So I've had this recurring dream. And I just want to preface it by saying this. And this recurring dream, well, first of all, let me backtrack a little bit. I grew up in Houston. I grew up in a place called Astroworld, which was a theme park. They used to drop us off there on a regular basis. My mom would, and we would spend our weekends there. We would spend spring break there. I mean, we basically lived at Astroworld when we were growing up as kids. And they tore it down in 2005. And I hadn't been there for several years. I moved away. I moved out of Houston, and that was that. But I've had this recurring dream over the last few years, and if you go through my browser history, you'll notice that I've been looking up Astroworld, and most, in particular, the Texas Cyclone, which was this roller coaster. It was a staple roller coaster. It was a wooden roller coaster, and it was modeled after the Coney Island Cyclone. And they actually wanted to bring the Coney Island Cyclone to Houston, but they found out it was too expensive, so they just built a replica and a little bit bigger. I never really had, much connection to the Cyclone. That wasn't one of my favorite rides there. I like more like steel looping type of roller coasters. But I've had this recurring dream for many years. And this dream is of Astroworld being open in some capacity. So I'm driving in one dream, and I pull up, and there's the Texas Cyclone. But it's open as though it's a carnival ride where you buy a ticket just to get on the ride. And Astroworld was closed down, but the Texas Cyclone was there, which that's a roller coaster that was demolished when they closed down Astroworld. And oddly enough, they found the front cart, in some random coffee shop in Canada, which is really cool just to see a little bit of that history there. But this apparition comes up to me, and she hands me a ticket, and I get on the ride, and it's always dilapidated. In other dreams, same scenario. I get in, and she hands me the ticket, and they've taken away some of the track, and so they've tried to restore it the best they could in other dreams. In other dreams, I can see other parts of the amusement park which are covered in grass and taken over and things like that. But it's been this recurring dream I've been having for years and years and years. And up to this point, I just thought the dream just meant, hey, you need to go out and have a little bit of fun. But why is this ghostly apparition person always there handing me a ticket to get on the ride? I think I understand what this dream was all about now that we have this whole Astroworld situation. What do you think, Mrs. Gio?
I think you may be absolutely right about that. The fact that the dream sequence follows the sequence of events that real life portrayed, which is that you have this place that a lot of people from generation X, Y, and Z have vague memories or very clear and persistent memories of that place in their childhood or in their early adult years. And because of that, when it was shut down, that nostalgia still remained. And it wasn't just nostalgia, though, that kept this alive in the back of your mind. I think it was kept alive in the back of your mind because deep down inside, you feel that there's an energetic vortex there that's already pre-existing that, if tapped into, can produce unusual effects.
You've watched me throughout the years. What's one of my favorite YouTube channels to watch in this regard?
Oh, you like to watch this channel. I don't know what it's called, but
Defunct
I know what they
Land.
do. Defunct Land, and they go to broken down theme parks and carnivals and places like that. Well,
not just that, but they show a bunch of rides of the past.
Yeah,
things that have
rides.
shut down at Disney World, things that have shut down,
now
roller coasters.
Defunct rides.
Yeah. So I was watching some POV of the Texas Cyclone, things like that. And then all of a sudden, over the last weekend, It was the last weekend, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
We had this event. Tell us about this event real quick, because I want to bring Emily on because she's been waiting.
Yeah, definitely. This event was supposed to be a regular concert. It was supposed to last 2 days. It was supposed to last from Friday to Saturday. I believe the 6th to the 7th. And this was supposed to be just a regular thing. There was no age limit on the entrance. There was no making sure that everybody was over 18. There were no guardians that needed to be present. Setting it up for a catastrophic event or anything to happen. The fire chief was not allowed in twice. He asked to be let in so he could figure out different exit routes that people could use in case anything did happen. And what ended up happening was, regardless of what caused the initial deaths, people started dropping like flies about 6 minutes into the set. He started about 6 minutes in to the hour.
It happened exactly at 9:13
p.m. It was exactly at that time that they started to see people dropping dead.
So this event is like a rave from the past, except a festival type of event, but it's based around rap music. Rap music these days is very robotic. It's nothing like it was when we were growing up, where it was, where you had balls. Now it's like a bunch of sissy-ass bitches, excuse my language, with fucking pink hair and all that bullshit, and it's all about being like hooked on like pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Before it was about being the dope man. Now it's about being the dope fiend. It's just it's funny the way it's changed like that. But anyways, so I see Emily laughing over there. She's making me laugh.
Am I going too slow? I'll speed it up.
No. I'm just thinking, you told me to get some corduroy pants one time. Well, I'm the dope man. Yeah, boy, I wear corduroy. All right. Anyways. So the music has changed. It's transformed. Yeah. The rave scene has also changed. We just went to EDC a couple of weeks ago, and I got some cool videos from backstage and all that we might play a little bit later in the broadcast. But EDC was another one of these massive events, very similar to Astroworld, but EDC was based around EDM, electronic dance music, as opposed to rap music. And even the festival scene these days is not the way it used to be. It used to be different. There was that one tent we went to. They were playing psytrance, and it was like an old school rave. They had the laser lights out, all of that. But the rest of the festival was like, it wasn't the same vibe as it was back in the day. So I was a little disappointed about that, but I didn't expect it to be the same vibe. But Emily came on the show many years ago and was talking about how there's energy harvesting going on at these events. And I thought, no way. And then I talked to my friend, Ty, who I used to go to all the parties with. And I asked Ty, I said, hey, we had this guest on our show, and she was talking about how the rave scene was potentially mind control and so on and so forth. And he goes, yeah, I've heard that too. And I said, really? I said, that's interesting. Then Emily started talking about how the dancing, the movements, everything that's going on at those events is creating an energy that they're siphoning off of. And so throughout the years, I've had this in the back of my mind, and I've been, really thinking about this. And as many people know, I've started to revisit my old craft of DJing and everything like that. And when I realized this, we went to EDC and the vibe wasn't right. And I was thinking to myself, God damn it. I mean, it's just, is there nothing pure? There's nothing pure in my childhood at all. Everything has been one big fucking operation, like Astroworld. I spent my entire childhood at Astroworld. The rave scene, it was supposed to be about peace, love, unity, and respect. Now it's about profit loss, profit loss, upsales and reorders. I mean, that's what it's turned into, and it's like, what the hell is going on here? So bringing it all the way back, even rap music in and of itself, which started back in the 70s as, fight the power and all that. It had a really hardcore political message, is now turned into soul harvesting. Yeah. Which I don't even know where to begin with this.
Well, I do. And where I want to begin with this is in times past, starting in 2018, when this guy, Travis Scott, the musician in question. I say musician with quotation marks and bunny ears because he's not a musician, but for lack of a better term, he became popular around 2018, and he has a lot of influence over youth, and I'm talking about youth, like 13, 12 years old, even as young as 9 to 15. That age group is very much obsessed with this guy because his stuff's been on Fortnite. He has a lot of pull.
Well, speaking of, pay attention, because as you're talking, I'm asking the audience to pay attention to the screen, because as you're talking, I'm going to play his video from Fortnite. And I want to point out, first of all, right here, this little face with the X'd out eyes and the stitched up mouth. I'm not going to play the music that accompanies it, but it's a portal. Yeah. So continue, please.
Yeah, we're talking about a guy that has, in times past, he's been arrested a few times in the past because he incites riots. He tells people to disobey the security people and be belligerent and do harmful things both to each other and to the security people. And he has said this entire time that what was going on in this crowd he had no idea what was going on in the crowd, and he didn't stop this show from completing. And his team even went so far as to say in the documents for the security personnel, do not stop the show for anything. Do not stop the show for anything. If something is happening in one area of the crowd, let the show continue and just tend to what's going on in that area.
Refer to dead people. It's in the training manual as Smurfs. And
do not panic. And do everything you can.
And on one hand, panic. That's understandable. On the other hand, I have never been to a show where the artist doesn't stop the show when somebody's injured or passes out.
Right.
He sat there and he watched them, and at the moment this was happening, he says, I see you all in the back. You all know what you came out here for.
Right.
Now he's claiming ignorance.
Yeah,
Kylie Jenner puts on this mask, puts her hands in this weird
prayer pose.
Kind of prayer position as this is happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And their baby daughter is with them and is watching all of this happening, but she has 5 security guards just for her, just for that kid. Whereas you've got kids in the crowd that do not have guardians with them. They do not have to be, 18 to get in. They are tiny kids. There's a 9-year-old that's on his father's shoulders at this time, and when this is starting. And from the minute it starts, people are already kind of freaking out a little bit because it's too crowded. They all say the same thing. We already couldn't breathe. And it felt like we were suffocating. And a short girl, she said, I had to jump up to get air, to get oxygen, because I couldn't even breathe just as it was starting. And so many people have said, this looks like hell. This looks like a portal to hell. Are we being dragged to hell? What is going on? Well, and there's a sign that says, see you on the other side.
Well, look at this video here. I mean, it's clear what's going on, and it's not like, people weren't warned. I just hate how they take our fucking
that made me so mad.
And turn it into that.
Bastardized.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah,
but
it really is.
It's neither here nor there.
And one more thing I want to add before we bring Emily on is that in past shows, he has stopped the show before. But the reason why he stopped the show was because somebody took his shoes as he was crowd surfing. And he stopped the show for 3 whole minutes while he urged the listeners in the crowd to beat his ass for taking his shoe. And he won't stop the show for people dying, but he'll stop the show for his shoe. Think about that for a second. And he's also encouraged people to jump off balconies. Don't worry, they'll catch you. They'll catch you. He's encouraged much
I've seen
violent
Pantera. I've seen so
and
many
stupid
shows,
behavior.
and I used to stage dive all the time. I used to be in the mosh pit. I broke my leg at White Zombie and Anthrax. I got to meet Sean, the bassist of White Zombie. She gave me a kiss on the cheek. It made breaking my leg it made it worth it
Totally
to me.
worth
I was
it.
14 years
Yeah.
old, But it's that kind of stuff happens at shows, and there's mosh pits. What they're doing at these shows is not really moshing. It's more like, I don't know. They call it raging.
Yeah.
But it's like a bunch of like ninnies prancing around.
They're prancing around but hurting each other in the process somehow. Like, I don't know how they're hurting each other. I mean, they're jumping off balconies. That's how they're hurting each other. They're jumping off balconies, jumping on each other, doing stupid things. They're doing stupid things. They're not really moshing.
That's true. But anyways, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I don't want to keep Emily waiting
I don't
want
to keep her waiting any longer either, because she's been very patient
gracious with her
us.
time.
Yeah.
Emily, how are you, my dear?
I'm good, guys. Wow, I'm not quite sure where to jump in your entree here. You left me so many places I could sort of launch off of.
Well, I wanted to set the show up a little bit better.
Yeah, me too.
But at the same time, I think everybody's pretty much aware of what's going on, because
deaths.
Literally people are on TikTok right now burning their Kylie Jenner perfumes and makeup and stuff like
Throw
that.
them in the trash.
Everybody's calling
Bye,
it out
bitch.
as a satanic ritual, which, it's not satanic per se, but we can call it that for all intents and purposes. But everybody is calling this out. And the fact checkers are coming in and going, fact check, there is no evidence that this is a satanic ritual. These fact checkers, it's not even fun. I mean, it's so comical. A quick detour real quick. YouTube, and I'm going to talk about this after we let go of Emily, but YouTube is removing all the dislikes starting December 13th from YouTube. And I was watching a CNN clip, and it had like 30,000 dislikes and like 500 likes. And I'm like, gee, I wonder why they're doing that. That you can't hide it anymore. So, Emily, we can begin anywhere you'd like. I mean, it's been many years since we first talked about the whole rave situation. You and I were both in the rave scene. I have talked about that rave airport, both on air and off air. I don't remember that night. My sister was there, and I brought it up with my sister, and I didn't even know my sister was there. And she's like, yeah, I was there with you, dude. Don't you remember? And I'm like, no, I don't fucking remember. So that was a crazy thing. But, I never really thought about it in that dynamic until you brought it to the table. Then once you did, you started showing me all the rave flyers. And when you started showing me all the raves, there were freaking raves called MK Ultra. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Is there nothing pure in this world anymore? I mean, is it all just one big mind fuck?
So I think we're at this place where you have to find a moment of purity with yourself in the midst of the chaos going on all around you, because I don't know that there's protected spaces and environments that you can go to still, like in nature or, a few other things. But if you enjoy that sort of, big sound and that sort of energy, you're going to have to learn how to, and this is the truth for everything we're heading into, that we've been in for a while, but we're heading deeper and deeper into, is you're going to have to find peace in yourself, or purity inside yourself amongst all the craziness around you. But I think maybe that's the place to start, which might be airport, right? So you and I may have crossed paths that night and not even know it. So that was 1999.
I am 99% sure that I crossed your path that night. I remember you from that event. And you know what's funny is that I was looking up photos. Everybody was wearing a mask.
Oh, interesting. That's when the mask thing first started.
We used to put Vicks in it, and you take ecstasy, and so we would dance wearing masks. How things come full circle.
It's all, I mean, everything that we're experiencing was definitely, pre-programmed and broadcast through, the rave scene in some weird way. I remember like in the first few weeks of the lockdown, Robert Phoenix and I were talking about that, how masks were part of rave culture. And I think we played a Green Velvet track, that he used to come out with his gas mask on and cameras ready, prepare to flash and all that kind of stuff. But masks have always been a part of it. But that night at airport, so that was 1999, it was like probably September or October. I had just recently moved to Austin, and I don't know, maybe I had been to like 3 or 4 parties before airport here in Austin, right? And, how things have changed, right? I didn't really think twice about the fact that it was being held at the airport, and it was at the old airport in Austin. It's not now we have Austin Bergstrom, which is sort of outside of town, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that later because I think there's something interesting going on there as well. But the airport used to be closer in, right on Airport Boulevard, sort of on the just on the western edge of downtown Austin, and it was at the airport, and the airport had just, shut down a few years before and they had moved it out, and there was military all over the place. I don't know if you remember that, Chris. And for some reason, while I noticed that, and I guess like in some way I thought it was odd, I didn't really think it was that odd because there was a lot of people from the military who were part of the rave scene in Austin that came from, what's the camp, up in outside of between Austin and Waco. Which one is it? I can't think of the military base, right? But there's a lot of military bases around, and there was a lot of people who were part of the rave scene. And that was not something I was used to in Southern California, but it was a feature of the rave scene here. So I didn't think too much of it. But, there was a lot of crazy stuff going on that night. Like I knew a lot of people who made tons and tons of money selling drugs that night. And it was odd to be having this party and be having like military people and law enforcement sort of there and watching it, but it was going on and it was a fun party and whatnot. But, I think that had I been more aware then, like if I had anywhere near the level of awareness that I had now, I would have known at that moment that something was wrong. But instead, it took another 3 or 4 years. And the moment I think I knew something was wrong, though I hadn't figured out exactly what was wrong, was when they tried to bring EDC to Austin. Pasquale Rotella, who runs Insomniac, and he had been doing, Nocturnal Wonderland and Electric Daisy Carnival and whatnot in Southern California for many years, had decided he wanted to do it here in Austin. And he had teamed up with a gentleman named Noah, who had a company called Arc Entertainment, who threw the biggest parties here in Austin and in Texas. And they decided they were going to do it here together. And it was a disaster. And in hindsight, what happened was it was during a period of time, like after the Rave Act had passed, and it was harder to get venues, and they had selected a venue that then a week before the county or the venue owner decided you can't use this venue. And what they decided to do is they canceled the show, and instead of refunding people's money, they decided to do a makeup show the following week. But the makeup show is just like a little tiny party in a parking lot somewhere with like 3 of the DJs so they could keep the money. And I had a huge problem with this because I had worked on the original party, and I was like, this is fucked up. Like, you can't just do that. People saved all their money. They traveled here from all over the country, and you're just going to give them like a shitty little show the following weekend for all the money they paid for that. Wow. And I started to recognize like the level of like corruption. But in hindsight, what I see now, when I look back and I look at the people and the characters that were involved, and Pasquale still runs Insomniac, although it's been infiltrated by a lot of other stuff, is the intelligence money, right? And not caring and doing people running stuff who don't care about the music at all. They're either in it for the money, and where are they getting the money from to do this stuff? Because it's a huge expenditure when you're not even sure you're going to make your money back. It's coming from think tanks, intelligence agencies, corporations, and whatnot. And that was when things started to get a little bit weird. Like, I stopped going to festivals at that point for the exact experience that just happened at Astroworld. Like, sometimes the crowd would get out of hand, and like there would be this pressing forward, and being small, I would get pinned between people. And I just decided like I didn't like that. And I never enjoyed parties as much as I enjoyed like the smaller or more mid-sized, like single room kind of raves. And I just decided it wasn't for me, like this being with, 50,000 of my closest friends and people wearing butterfly outfits and all this. It's just like, it's not for me, right? That part. I like the underground more. So I kind of moved in a different direction and stopped going to the festivals. But the underground is not necessarily any safer. It's just a different poison, right? And so I began to go deeper and deeper into the underground. And while I've had some amazing times and I wouldn't trade it for the world, and I still enjoy it and do it, a whole other reality has been revealed to me. And I think a lot of what we're seeing going on above ground in these more commercial festivals now are the result of experiments and sort of testing that has gone on in the underground, and they've figured out what works and what they want to do with it, and it's on display right now. And I think that's what we've been seeing for several years at the festivals, but I think it reached its crescendo the other night, and I think we're going to see more of it. I think this is going to be a kind of a common occurrence, but it's going to look different every time. So anyway, I just said a bunch of stuff.
No, but, it's crazy because when you first brought this to the table, I was like, no, there's no way. But as I started to look back, I started to realize that, that party airport, you said there was a bunch of military there. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything about the military, and I talked to my friend Ty, and he said, we left early because it was like run by the military or something like that, and there were military people all over the place. And he said, this isn't a good place to do business. I'll leave it at that. And so apparently we wound up leaving early, but I remember arriving at the parking lot and then ending up in the parking lot, and it was daytime, and our group was there, and that's all I remember. I remember getting on the bus. I don't remember anything after getting on the bus, and apparently we left early. So his story is that we left after like 2 or 3 hours because we were just like, screw this. But we drove all the way from Houston to Austin. I don't remember the drive there. I don't remember the drive back. I don't remember anything about that night, and still to this day, I'm trying to figure out what the hell happened. But when you started to connect all these pieces of the puzzle here, I started to realize that you're absolutely right. There was something going on. Now the question is, and there is something going on with everything that's going on. I'm talking about all the events, not just back in the day, but it's coming to a head now. What are we talking about here? Are we talking about soul harvesting? Are we talking about mind control? Are we talking about programming? I can tell you this from EDC. There were flashes of messages on the screen that we were noticing. And we were both looking at each other going, that looks like some mind control stuff right there. We didn't take anything when we went. And I mean, we took something with us, but we wound up not taking it because we were like, I'm not really feeling this vibe. It's just not really a vibe that, it's not the same vibe. But what's going on here?
All right. So there's a variety of things going on at a variety of levels, right? So yes, it's not the same at every event, right? And when you're dealing with a huge festival like EDC, or there's an event going on here right now that I might talk about in a little bit. But when you're dealing with these sort of massive multi-stage events that have, thousands and thousands of people, there's like a cornucopia of fruit flavors going on, right? So I think, there's obviously like the energetic aspect of it. And like when you started talking about like soul harvesting or energy harvesting, that's going on. I think that's been a feature of musical gatherings probably since the beginning of time. And that energy harvesting can be a good thing. It can be something a community is doing as part of their, religious or ceremonial kinds of things. It can be a beautiful thing, or it can be something where people are being manipulated and taken advantage of, and everything in between. So that's going on. There's definitely mind control going on. That's been a feature of the rave scene, and just, I'd say, popular or like rock genre, pop, hip hop, electronic music. That's been a feature since the very beginning. People can obviously look into Dave McGowan's work or Mark Devlin's work and really like chart, like see the receipts basically on some of that. So mind control, both in like a sort of direct and indirect sense. And then increasingly, as things have gone on and the music has become more technological, like a technological level of mind control. And where we are right now, and, that's been experimented with for many years and used in variety of ways, we're at this place that it's basically a frequency war. It's electronics, it's technology, it's frequencies. And now, because of how the atmosphere has been electrified and ionized, and then the things that are going on inside of people's bodies. And I'm not just talking about the bite, although that takes it to another level. We obviously have been living through many, many years now of particles in the food, particles in the sky, designer drugs that like are some kind of programmable matter as opposed to like analog substances from the earth that used to be what people took as psychoactive drugs at, musical events or whatever. And so we have like everything is connected now, right? You have all of this stuff going on. And then the sigil magic, the symbolism, right? Like I guarantee you that 95+% of the people that go to these events, whether these events be heavy metal concerts, rock concerts, rap concerts, or raves, or underground dance, very underground stuff, most people are not well versed in esoteric symbolism, sigil magic, alchemical incantation, all of that kind of stuff, right? They might think it's cool, but they don't actually have any idea how it works or what it means. And, this is being taken massive advantage of with these festivals and these parties and these events now. And people also like think about what's going on in the world right now. Like people have moved from a scenario of being isolated in their home for, in some cases, in some areas, a year and a half. And then things open back up and there's these like very, exhilarating, exciting, enthralling kind of events that they're going to, and they are not biologically the same as they were a year and a half ago, right? And they haven't necessarily, you can go out, like, I don't know if you guys ever like go out to like a park or like an exercise trail area where you live, but like people don't walk or run the same anymore, dude. I see some of the funniest looking like ways of walking and the gait and people's strides, and like they don't look coordinated. Like, you used to see something funny like that once in a while, but now it's like everybody, right? Well,
I'm glad you brought that up. And Sheree, I'll let you jump in here in just a second, because I've been talking about how people seem to have these dead eyes and this dead walk to them too. It's very bizarre, but go ahead, Sheree, please.
I was just going to say it seems to me though that in times past it's been the case where the goal has been mind control, experimentation, psychological warfare, those kinds of things. What happened at this particular event last weekend was the goal was not so much those things. I mean, it was, but there was a very clear goal of death happening here. They were encouraged to rage out and hurt each other. They were beforehand. They were encouraged to, if you are not raging out, then you don't belong here. And so right away, what you're saying is incredibly valid in the context of what happens when you take kids that are their testosterone levels are surging. They've been cooped up for a year and a half, and they've been told by their idol, quote unquote, to rage out. And if they're not raging out, they don't belong. They're going to rage out, and they're going to rage out hard, and they're going to hurt other people and not even realize it because their hormones are just raging. Then you have the other elements that caused the initial death, which, just kind of, it snowballed out of control, but it wasn't out of control. If you watch really closely, there are a lot of attempts to try to get this to stop, and they refuse to stop. And I don't think they refused to stop because of money. I don't think that was all of it. I think there was a deeper reason behind wanting this to continue, and wanting this to continue even to the point of, the police said it only lasted 40 minutes. It lasted an hour and 15 minutes. And so I'm wondering what happened in that hour and 15 minutes, especially backstage. What can you say to what you feel was going on that was different this time around? Because 9 people died, and you didn't see that happening at the one that Chris is showing right now.
Yeah, yeah. This is EDC that I'm showing here, just for the audience out there. But you're right. Back in the day, I don't remember deaths. I remember ambulances being parked. I threw a few raves myself, large ones. We had Kyoki spinning, we had Aphrodite spinning. You know, we hired some big names, and we always had an ambulance outside. And there were no deaths, there were no overdoses, there was no violence, there was nothing like that. Then all of a sudden, what happened in 1999 is they busted the manufacturer who was. There were like 3 manufacturers of LSD, and there was one guy, Sammy the Bull Gravano, who was John Gotti's underboss. He was living in the witness protection program in Arizona.
Phoenix, yeah.
Yeah. And they busted him, and he was bringing in all the good MDMA. At the same time, they put the precursor for MDMA, sassafras, on the watch list. So now you had manufacturers making all kinds of adulterants. Then you started getting all the overdoses. But at the same time, what happened is all of a sudden, all my friends started doing meth and heroin. And we actually were talking about this on the show, and the guest brought up that in 1969, the exact same shit happened. They got rid of all the good LSD, all the good stuff that they were using, and all of a sudden it went dark after that orange sunshine acid. Almost like there's a cycle here that we're watching. With this Astroworld thing, if you don't mind me going on for just a bit longer, this Astroworld thing, I was talking to a friend of mine earlier, and I can't confirm this, but I was talking to him, and he was saying that this happened 21 years ago, again at a Pearl Jam concert. 21 years before that at a Who concert. Travis Scott was wearing a Pearl Jam shirt during this event. Coincidence? I don't know.
All right. So first of all, I think these things do happen cyclically. And your point about what happened with the acid and the MDMA is incredibly valid. Yes, I remember exactly when we started to have meth and heroin and things like that at parties. Like I remember, so when the first round when I lived here in Austin between 1999 and 2003, we used to go back and forth, Houston, Dallas, Austin, to all the parties. And I went to Houston quite a bit. And I'd say there was more of that kind of stuff in Houston than there was in Austin. There was some of that stuff in Dallas too, but it did happen here in Austin as well. But I remember there being a party where people were overdosing on heroin at the Eyeball Room, I think it was.
I used to throw parties at the Eyeball.
Yeah. And then there was,
and that's where 99% of the parties I would go to would be at the Eyeball.
Yeah. And then there was the whole thing that happened at Transit
at
in
the
2000.
Eyeball. Oh shit.
Eyeball room.
It just hit me. It's called the International Ballroom.
Ballroom.
But it's the Eyeball. Oh, fucking hell. We were all
being surveilled, right? We were all being surveilled and we didn't know it, right? And so then there was like this, there was this, I'm going to talk about this other party in just a minute. I'm going to show you something in just a second. But there was a party called Transit that happened.
I was at Transit. That was at the Astra Hall in 2000. And all these dumbass fucking kids were on camera going, we're doing Molly, we're doing this, we're doing that. Yeah, that was
NBC
the end
there.
of the goddamn fucking rave scene. I remember they put the cameras in my face. I'm like, get those fucking things out of my face and get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry.
The news was there.
I don't mean to cuss.
Well, I mean, the event had been infiltrated by intelligence agencies and there was news cameras there filming for a documentary. And that was part of what led to the shutdown of things. I wasn't there that night. It was very weird. Whenever there was like one of these crazy things happening at a party in Houston, that would always be like, for some reason I had decided not to go. I don't know exactly what that says about me, right? If like I had some inner intuition or if my bosses called me off, but, because at the time I didn't recognize the mind control that I was under. And when I think back to some of the things that happened over the years, it's like, dude, like, how is it that I would like crazy shit would go down and everyone else would end up arrested except for me, or I would somehow decide not to go the night that, something would happen and I decide not to go to the night that all this crazy shit happened and whatever. And I've had questions about that for myself over the years, but the transit thing happened. And then what's really weird is when this event happened the other day and people started posting about it, there was something about it that felt really familiar. Like I felt like there had been something like this at a rave.
Oh shit! I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but this event took place at the same place transit took place.
It did.
Yeah, Astroworld is the same lot that transit took place. This Astroworld event took place, and you know what it's called now? It's called NRG. Energy Stadium. Same grounds, exact same grounds.
Okay.
Whoa.
So then that, like, I had this sense of familiarity that something like this had happened at the same spot before. I've been telling that to people all week. You can go, and there was somebody's post that I said that underneath. I'm like, there's something familiar about this. Like I can't, right? So it's cyclical. And this, what you're saying about the drugs and stuff like that is part of it. And I interviewed Alana Freeland yesterday, and we were talking about how it also is kind of like what happened at Altamont, right? Back in, I think, the 60s, as part of that whole, that's what sort of kicked off the change from like the anti-war activism that went along with that music into just like the sex, drugs, rock and roll and, free love and all that kind of stuff. So it's always kind of like that. As far as what Cherie was saying, there's a couple things going on. So I think that there's all this like dark, like satanic, like stuff that they're showing, and on a certain level that is real, but that's kind of what they want people to focus on.
Yeah.
But I think what we're really looking at is connectivity and frequencies, and literally experimentation with literally turning people off.
Right.
Like,
exactly right.
I think that so I don't know. Apparently, I don't have confirmation of this. This is just what I've heard, is that in order to get into that event, you either had to have a negative test or be double poked, right?
Well, or you had to have a photo of your COVID passport.
Right.
Which was very easy. We have a photo of our COVID passport.
Okay. So you have a situation in there where that everybody, so I don't know how much research you guys have done on the test, but the test is full of all sorts of weird stuff too.
Yeah.
Right. But you have this scenario where you kind of have an ID on everybody based on these passports as to who's in there. Right. And which people actually have ingredients in their body to bake a cake, let's say. Right. And some of these codes are then associated with batch numbers and different brands, and different lot numbers have different, like not every cake has the exact same amount of sodium as, right? So, like Alana and I were talking about this, and she's like, no, these are directly targeted frequencies, right? And not that I didn't know that, but like, to me, it's like, I'm thinking about mind control through frequencies, which is a lot of what I experienced in the underground and whatnot. But no, like she's like, this is something different. This is like, they're starting to practice, for, in my head, what I'm assuming she's getting at is they're starting to practice for like the social credit score system, where we would all go into controlled environments, being smart cities or whatever it is, right? And, if somebody hasn't, been a good girl and, liked all of Mark Zuckerberg's tweets all week or whatever, then when you pass this area that you're not allowed to go into, you're going to get shut down, turned off, right? You're down for take a nap. Right? Like, remember when you were little in school, if you were bad, you got like benched for 5 minutes?
Oh, I
like
never made that connection. I've got on the screen here real quick, because it kind of goes along with what you're saying. This is at the Astroworld event, and these kids are telling them, hey, there's people dying, stop the show, stop the show. This guy is telling them, I'll throw you off the fucking stage, something to that effect, and they're threatening to kill them for telling them to stop the show. So you said, they put you down, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This kind of goes in line with what it was physically manifesting there, but then people just dropping dead too. I mean, just, that's it. Boom, gone.
So I think, but the other thing that I think people have to get their head around is most of the people working on this show, including possibly Travis Scott himself, they're all under mind control too. They're all being hit with frequency stuff too. everyone's being directed in a way based on not just what's going on inside their body and their makeup, but like targeted frequencies and sounds. And so like you see a guy in there and he's focused, he has one job to do. His mind control is telling him in his contract, I think I was looking at Cherie's Facebook page, before we got started, his contract is telling him, don't stop the show no matter what. Don't stop the show no matter what. Don't stop the show no matter what. Right. So that's his mantra. Right. And these kids' mantras are rage no matter what, rage no matter what, rage no matter what, and then have you guys ever been to like a hypnotist show when he just snaps and is like, everyone sleep? And the people who are under who the hypnosis works on will all go down, and you'll have other people who it doesn't affect who don't. And in this case, my guess would be some of this is related to whatever their biological status is, right? And at this particular event, if the reporting is correct, then, everybody who was in there was altered on some level, right? Now, I have some concerns about something that's going on in Austin as we speak right now. There's a festival here this weekend, a 3-day festival that I thought maybe I might show you some graphics from, because I think you'll find them interesting. And at this particular event, there's no rules about that. You don't have to have a passport or a test or anything like that. But what you do have once you walk in there is an RFID bracelet. So everybody's tagged, even if everybody doesn't have a certain biological status inside their body, right? Everyone is tagged and connected to their identification and their credit card in order to buy things inside the festival. That's right. So they have they have tracking tags on everybody.
Definitely send those. Or if you can share your screen.
Yeah, let me show you. I
do want to say this real quick.
Give me screen share.
I found it. I don't know how you do screen share.
So go to the screen share button. It's green on the bottom of the screen.
Okay.
And if you push it, it'll say like enable, let everybody share, or let your participants share, or something like that.
Okay.
And then I can do it. Okay, cool.
All right.
Go ahead.
They have at EDC, they had this, it was all over their website, everywhere. No drugs, no drugs, no drugs. The zero tolerance policy for drugs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And Cherie was like, that's because they want you to take what they're giving. Yep. Not what you're taking in there with you.
Right.
Don't take anything
they want to control what
that
goes in.
You get in there. And we didn't even take what we brought with us. But it was just very strange to see a quote unquote rave crew, which, I mean, I guess it's festival, putting up really big zero tolerance policy for drugs. I mean, this is where you do drugs at. This is the place to do them at. Like, that's what these places are for. So,
I mean, I think that they have to say that to be able to get the permits to do the stuff, and they're interested in selling a lot of alcohol, right? And whatnot, but they know people are doing it. But I think that by telling people not to do it, it's kind of like, okay, if you choose to do it, you're on your own, buddy, here, right? Like, I don't think at this point, especially at these big festivals, it's safe to do any of those drugs out and about anymore, because you don't know how they're going to interact with whatever frequency. I mean, even just with the intensity of the sound systems, like just the music, but with these directed frequencies and some of these very, very high-end laser light hologram kind of shows, things can get pretty confusing pretty quick. I wanted to show you this. So this was one of the flyers they were using to advertise the DJs that are playing on the different stages. And of course, they're all with the triangle. They're all inside the pyramid, right? They've got the triangle around their heads, but they have the women with the up triangle and the men with the down triangle. So they have the women wearing the masculine, right? And the men wearing the feminine, which I thought was interesting to do. So that was interesting, but check this out as well. Okay. So these are the stages, right? The volcano stage. Right? There was a volcano on the Travis Scott thing. We also have this endlessly erupting volcano La Palma going on right now, right? So there's one stage, then there's the tsunami stage, right? And then there's the frequency stage. And like, look at what they're, and the event is called seismic. So that's an earthquake, right? So it's hearkening at natural disasters, but then there's a frequency stage. Are the natural disasters being created with frequencies, right? And I just thought the symbolism for this was pretty interesting. And then, it's the RFID tag you have to wear when you're there. And it's super expensive. It's a 3-day event. But what's really interesting about it is it's at the location. It's basically at the airport.
It's at the airport.
So let me show you. Let me pull up something else. So
there goes my DJ career.
Let me show you something. Let me show you where it is, and then I'm going to show you something else, right? Okay, so let me get you a map here. I'm going to screen share again, right? So this is a new venue. The person who throws this party also built a venue up here to do called the Concourse Project, right? It's right here. So Concourse implying airport. This is the airport right here. Okay, so this is the airport. This whole area right here is the airport. Mm-hmm. Here's the event. Okay, that's where it's happening. Now, let me show you something else that I thought was kind of interesting. Here is...
well, if I can jump in real quick, EDC was actually right down the street from the Air Force Base.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. So here we are. We're in, I was looking for the Energy Stadium. Let me see, I moved here it is. Energy Stadium is right here. Look where the airport is, guys.
They're all right by the airport. People in the chat are saying, are the airports on ley lines?
Well, this is what I've come to understand. So during the course of the lockdown, the biggest thing going in electronic music was this group. They're from France. Like, it's the group that throws events. They're called Circle, spelled CERCLE, right? Circle. And they had kind of become famous doing these events at like locations that were like all like air and space museums, and then like buildings that people might refer to as like Tartarian buildings or mud flood buildings, right? And they'd have a huge crowd and they'd play like super banging techno. I've watched some of these sets. Like, this was portal opening activity. There's people in the chat room tonight who were at the Conspiracy Cocktail where we played the Boris Brejcha set from La Grande Palais in France. And you could literally see the building changing size and shape. You could see people appearing and disappearing. You could see like entities, all kinds of crazy stuff going on, like portal opening stuff, right? Well, right before the lockdown happened, they were supposed to do a huge festival. Guess where it was going to be at?
The airport.
The special airfield in France. It never happened.
So one of two things is going on here. Either A, there's some kind of energetic connection to the airport, or B, they're able to snatch people up really quick, put them on a plane, and get them the hell out of there.
So I think we're on the same page here. So I think there's a couple of things going on. I think there's an interesting like energetic perimeter around airports, right? I think there's like an energy grid that is set up around them based on like the radar systems and all the things that are going on there that for some reason, like the air traffic control, right? So think about it. If people are kind of like aircraft, like UFOs or like planes that can be sort of controlled or monitored, like from a control room, right? Then you want that energy field that sort of tracks everything, right? And so I think that might be some of what it is. But I also think airports are a really good place to play with time. Like, if you think about like, all the weird stuff that happens in airports, right? Like, people get stuck there for long times. They're early, they're late, they miss their flight. Their flight gets canceled. They have to fall asleep at the airport. They might even stay at a hotel that's at the airport, right? Like, it's kind of this zone where like time is kind of funny, right? Like, you don't, if you're just passing through one airport on the way to somewhere else, you may or may not know what time it is. Your body's going to be sort of disoriented and whatnot. So it's an easy place to sort of create an anomaly like the one you had, Chris. Right? Like, I had this weird experience happen at an airport one time where I got off of one flight and I was getting onto another, but it was like a long layover, like 4 or 5 hours. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, I kind of want to take a nap, but I don't want to miss my flight. So I literally sat in the chair right next to the door where like they were calling, when it's your time to get on the airplane, they call your thing, right? I sat right there. I don't know what the fuck happened, right? I fell asleep. I woke up hours later. I had completely missed the flight. No, I didn't hear anything like that. Like, I got on another flight. It was fine. But I was literally sitting 3 feet from where the woman was calling, whatever, if, last call for flight, whatever, like 3 feet from her, right? How did that happen? Right. And I wasn't fucked up or anything like that. It wasn't as part of any Rave adventure.
If you don't mind me jumping in for a second, do you remember the book and movie Langoliers?
I never saw that.
Okay. The Langoliers, spoiler alert, people, but the movie sucked. It was a Stephen King book, though. It's about these people that are on an airplane, and they find themselves in some kind of time warp, and they're in between time. And the Langoliers are the ones that come and take reality away for every moment. And they're stuck in that moment that is the previous moment, and everybody's gone. Do you recognize this by any chance? Let me put myself bigger on the screen here. Do you recognize those numbers?
2806 4212. It looks, I don't know what that is, but for some reason, I'm feeling something in my body when I look at them. What is that?
That is from a movie called Donnie Darko.
Oh, yeah, I've seen Donnie Darko.
Okay, I took on the stage name Dimitri Darko, Dimitri for DMT.
I saw that, yeah.
And I actually, went full speed ahead with it and got the tattoo there, and it says, "Why are you wearing that stupid man suit?" I'm going to have my tattoo artist do a little more, art, because she's freaking awesome. Like, this is a little bit sidetracked, but she did this one, and this one's just freaking awesome, especially when you see it up close. I was a little short-sighted when I did this one. However, the reason I bring it up is because the movie Donnie Darko revolves around an airplane. And what happens is, at the beginning of the movie, this jet engine falls from the sky, creates an alternate timeline somehow, and Donnie Darko finds himself in this alternate timeline. At the end of it, it's revealed that the airplane moved through an alternate timeline. This has been told to us many different times in many different ways, all surrounding airplanes, airports, and timeline shifts.
Yes.
So I just wanted to highlight that you're really, you're making the hairs on my arms stand up.
So, okay. So, there's a TV show we just recently watched as well called Manifest. I'll be doing a show about that, recording this Sunday with Gary Warmerdam. We do a Navigating Netflix series, and we'll be talking about Manifest. But this was people who got on an airplane, in Jamaica, and the airplane disappeared, never landed, and then suddenly reappeared 5 years later, landing in New York where they were supposed to have landed. And everybody else on Earth has aged 5 years, but these people who had been on the plane haven't aged. Right. And what ensues is like, what happened to these people? Where did they go for 5 years? And it starts to get into some of what you're talking about. Right.
I remember that.
On a different reality, different timeline. And I think that, yes, like, I think we don't know. I've been having a lot of these conversations with people lately. Like, we don't really understand the place we live, the shape of the whatever the fuck this is that we're on, where we're actually going when we go on airplane trips. Like, are we sure? Like, how, sometimes when you go up in the airplane and you're moving forward, like, it doesn't seem like you're really going very fast or very far.
Yeah.
I saw an airplane at the airport the other day here in Austin that was literally like lifted straight up. It didn't go forward and fly away. It was like literally rising off the ground. I'm like, how do we know we're not just moving to like a different layer of the cake, right? That we're not actually going anywhere. We're like getting in the airplane and we're just like moving to another timeline or another like realm or another density or whatever. And my question with a lot of this is, with all of these parties at the airports, right? This circle group, what's been interesting is during the lockdown, they started going to these like fantastic geographic locations and doing events without audiences. And I don't really care for the music they've been doing since they've done that. It's a lot more melodic and like, just, I like techno, like real techno. I've never been a super trance person or really melodic music. I like techno. I like some house and whatever, but they've been going to these amazing geographic locations, and there's something odd about it. Like, I have asked the question, are they really actually going there? Or are we being treated to our first sort of virtual events, right? Where they're actually using virtual reality and making people think that they're at the event. And the next thing is going to be, you can attend the event in virtual reality, right? But part of what's been weird to me about the circle is when they were shooting at a location in Los Angeles, right? And they said they will put out a notice before they shoot that like, nobody will be allowed to, like, we'll be shooting at Griffith Park Observatory. Nobody will be allowed to attend the event, so don't even try to come. Well, if you're not there, you wouldn't want people to know that. So that would be a reason why people couldn't come, right? I understand they weren't having like an audience, right? But Griffith Park is a public park open to lots of people, like people live in the area, like, right? But if they're basically saying, if you try to approach the thing, you'll be turned away, so don't even come. Why couldn't somebody come and stand outside the perimeter and whatever, unless they really don't want people there because they're not actually there. And if somebody showed up, they would find that there was not music being played and that this whole thing is like a VR game. Like, I've considered that possibility. And I've also considered, based on their schedule, sometimes doesn't make sense. Like, they would be in like India and then 2 days later, Los Angeles, and then back in the Middle East somewhere 3 days later. It's like, why wouldn't they have done the two that are closer together first and then come to Los Angeles after? I'm like, what if the airports are all connected in a way that we don't understand? Like, what if there's some sort of like underground tunnel network or some sort of way that these airports, not all of them maybe, but some of them are sort of connected on a frequency range or energetically by like a ley line or something like that, where you can actually portal and move from place to place like very quickly. Like, maybe they can get there in an hour, or just by going through some sort of portal or Stargate or whatever. I've been playing with all of these ideas because what is the obsession with the airport?
There's
right?
The people in the chat are pointing to Malaysia Flight 370.
Yeah.
As you were speaking, I was thinking of this flight from the 1940s that disappeared, and it showed up in like 1980 or something like that, and then disappeared after that. I don't remember the flight. I can look it up, but there has been some stories, we'll just call them stories, of flights disappearing and appearing in a different time space on the radars decades later. So I think you're onto something there. The
other thing, the Malaysian thing, it's weird. I saw a story about that like today or yesterday, that like someone who saw it, or some flight controller or something, said that the Malaysian airline flew around in circles for like 20 minutes or did 20 circles before they finally disappeared, right? I've been seeing that a lot with like birds and weird stuff here, that there's all these birds flying in these circles and then just kind of like disappearing. So I don't know if there's like these energetic vortexes that are around some of these places and you just kind of circle till you go through. Like, I don't know, but that's funny you mentioned the Malaysian thing, because I saw that article today.
It's creepy. I was going to play a clip, but I'm not exactly sure where this is in the clip, so forget about that. But there's a scene in the movie Donnie Darko where they're talking about time travel, and Donnie's trying to figure out how to time travel, and the guy says, you have to have some kind of large vessel, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like an airplane, something like an airplane. Metal. Yeah, metal, big metal. Yeah.
You have to have metal, and I think the chapter from, I remember seeing Donnie Darko, and it showed like the front page of each chapter from the book. And I think it said something like the conditions for time travel require metal and water.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's from Donnie Darko.
The theory, the theory of time travel, or the philosophy of time travel, I think is what the book is called. I don't remember off the top of my head.
So let me show you something else too. Okay, so you showed me that Fortnite video, and I've never seen that before. Like, I was not familiar with Travis Scott until this whole thing. So I was watching that video you were playing in the background, and it was really fascinating because it looks just like, it looks like a copy of scenes I've seen at festivals and raves I've been to, and I can identify the people dancing and the light show as ones I've seen before, but it's in cartoon form. But they show that portal, right? They show the circular thing. I don't know if you guys know who Chad Stumpke is. He's a friend of mine, but he does a lot of interesting sort of location investigations, and he has a whole thing he does on the Stargate that's inside of Hart Plaza in Detroit, right? So this is his work. This is Chad Stumpke's work. And Hart Plaza is where they have the Detroit Electronic Music Festival every year. And this is the Stargate that's right in the middle. And he has done all this work where he shows how it correlates to things in space, to things in Egypt, to, certain esoteric symbolism and whatnot. And this is right in the center of where the big music event, and then you can see sort of some of the city in the background and some of the interesting buildings and the different ways you can look through the portal and what you see in the background. But the portal sits right here at this, where this star comes together, right? The 5-pointed star comes together, right? So this is his stuff. It's fascinating, the work he's done. I've had him on the show a couple of times. But that sits right in the middle of, one of the biggest music festivals in the United States. And that when you were showing the video of the Fortnite, it was making me think of this scene right here.
Oh, well, yeah. During the event of Astroworld, that's exactly what they had in the back of the stage. Was a big portal. It turns into a portal. I mean, there's no other way to describe this thing.
And it looks like an upside down cross coming out of the portal. I mean, it really does. It really does. And then you can see the color shift from red to blue. And it was when it switched from red to blue for some reason that the crowd just went from being wild in a semi-positive way to wild in a freaking out like animals in a slaughtering pen.
That when it switched from red to blue?
Yeah, when it switched from red to blue.
Look.
Hold on. Let me put you back on the screen. Hold on. I got the Travis Scott thing on the screen right now.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I mean, this is... the Travis Scott thing has mountains in the background. I don't know if you mentioned that, but
look,
they advertised at the mountain.
All right.
And look at the red and the blue.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, why are we having all of the same symbolism? So, like, I have friends who are playing at this thing tonight. I'm not going to this. I don't like big festivals like that, right? But
I don't like big festivals like that now after EDC.
I'm like, be careful, dude. I'm like, you guys are all gonna, you have to be careful at this point around large groups of people. Just been like that for a while, but like, we're not all the same anymore. Not that we've all ever been the same, right? But we're literally not the same. We are not made of the same stuff anymore, right? And the way people are going to respond to things is different. And if you choose, I'm not telling people not to go, but I'm saying stay away from the big crowd, stand back. Don't be inebriated for sure. Mm-hmm. And if something starts to get weird, go home. It's not worth it. There's another party,
That is so true. Such good advice.
This is disappointing because it's true. Mm-hmm. And I mean, 100%. I miss that childhood innocence where you would go to the eyeball, drop some Molly, candy flip, watch a DJ. We used to go watch Bad Boy Bill. We would get like literally in the Sirwin Vegas, the big bass speakers. We would put our heads right there and just whoa, while we were rolling. Oh my God.
It's gonna rock all right. I remember.
Yeah.
So here's the thing with some of this, right? Like, yes, I'm with you on that. Like, you can still, like, there are still small events that you can go to where, like, you can still have a good time. And there are people who, and I'm one of them, who are committed to finding a way to have quality events that are sophisticated for people who are grown-ups who want to go and be able to enjoy the music and the sound and, have some drinks or do whatever they want to do, but in a more intimate environment and not be around all this crap. The problem is this, right? So, like, and this is, I think, maybe even more upsetting on some levels than what we're seeing at festivals, because, as much, we always knew that big festivals were commercial, right? We always understood that. And there was a time when they were fun and it felt somewhat safe, but we always understood that, like, okay, this is the big money. They're trying to make money. What's really sad to me is how bought into this agenda on every level the underground has become. Like, I was, these warehouse parties, like, deep in the bowels of East Los Angeles and downtown LA that I've been going to for the past 20 plus years. I'm not welcome there anymore. You cannot go in there. Underground parties, right? Underground parties. You cannot go in there if you don't. I'm like, really? How underground are you? Like, what kind of counterculture is this? They don't want people like me or like you in there. And I'm starting, and not only do they, sure, there's a story, an excuse that can be made about, oh, well, we don't want to get in trouble with the law. Not that ever stopped them before, right? But they're actually hostile to people who don't want to go along with that, or who, have an issue or a problem with that. Uh-huh. And I don't think they want people like me at those kinds of events, because they're gone, dude. Like,
you know what's interesting is when we were at EDC, we had backstage access. Mm-hmm. And there were some people who were treating us really nice, but others were treating us very hostile, for lack of a better term. I mean, it wasn't hostility to the point of,
hurting us,
actively, but they're energetically, the attitude they had, it was almost like we were resonating on some frequency that was really just fucking with theirs.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced that in the underground for years. I've always been like a little bit different than most of the people in the LA underground. Here in Austin, I have a lot more friends, and people seem to enjoy me more than they did in Los Angeles or whatever. But yeah, there's like a clashing resonance, and to the point where like in Los Angeles, and this is part of the reason I left Los Angeles, is I don't feel like welcome there. I don't feel like they're not interested in having people. I guess they're not interested in having purebloods at their parties, right?
If I can jump in before we move on, Ancient Trees in the chat said something really interesting. They want to keep us all controlled in 3D as the collective shifts into ascending into 5D. Oh no, hold on, I take that back. That wasn't the comment, but it was by that listener. I can't find the comment, but they said something to the effect of blue and red keeps. Here it is. Blue and red keeps us in 3D. Think about 3D glasses.
Yeah.
Oh,
blue and red.
Yeah.
Blue and red keeps us in 3D.
Yeah.
That's
so
a really good point.
The other thing that is interesting is, so a few weeks back, I went to they have events out at this Concourse Project, like single DJ events every week, right? And a few weeks ago, I went out there to see Carl Cox, right? And what was really strange was the sound was terrible. Right. And I had been there one time before that, and the sound was also terrible. And I'm like, I don't understand this. This is a brand new venue. They've put tons of money into this. They book all these huge DJs. The sound is terrible. Like, it's quiet. Right. I was like almost up the front for the beginning of Carl Cox. And it was so quiet, Chris, that I was holding like a conversation at regular voice tone with the person next to me. I was like, this is quiet. Like, nobody else seemed to notice but me that it was quiet. And what I'm wondering, and I have had this conversation with a couple people, and I mentioned this to, Alana yesterday, it's almost like these people have Bluetooth speakers inside of them and they can hear the music loud and I can't, right? It's bizarre. It's like the whole night, I was like, it's quiet. Like, I almost couldn't even dance because there was not like enough, right? Like it just didn't have any energy for me that way, but nobody else seemed to notice. All the kids who were, doing their robotic, whatever kind of Richard Simmons techno workout dancing, they seem to be clueless to that. And also, I agree with you. When I get kicked at a party now, it hurts a lot more than it used to, right? It's bizarre. It's like these people, like their bodies are made of like some heavier steel or something. Then,
it's heartbreaking because I was thinking, we've done our work. We did everything we were supposed to do here. Maybe I could just DJ for a little bit, enjoy the music, get back into the scene a little bit, just peace, love, unity, and respect. That's what it's all about. And it's not. It never has been. So
I think we've all been to, at least I know I have. I can't speak for you. I mean, I guess we've been at the airport together, but we've all been to events that were reasonably pure and genuine and had a lot of meaning for us. And I think it can be had again. The issue here, I think, is that, it's not cheap to throw an event, even if you're doing a smaller, low-key event. It's difficult to get a location. It's difficult to get good sound, and good sound is crucial to that vibe that you're talking about. And it's a lot of work, and there are people who are committed to doing that, but it takes time. And unfortunately, the people who are willing to like go along with letting, some special sound person come in and do anything for them, a special sound person from Tavistock or from, whoever, high-end scientific, sound altering technology, whatever kind of people, like they get the funding, they get money. Like, I don't think these events are really expensive to throw. Right. And sometimes they lose money. And where do these people get these never ending amounts of money to continue doing them and to take that risk? It has to be coming from, military intelligence companies like, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, things like that, or intelligence agencies, think tanks, like somebody is funding this. Right. And that's how they're able to do it. And it's different when it's you and I deciding, all right, Chris, I've saved up a couple $1,000 bucks. You've saved up a couple $1,000 bucks. Let's go find a warehouse. and let's do it. And if for some reason like people don't show up, then you lose all your money and you can't throw another party.
Well,
right?
that's
So
exactly
it's
what
difficult.
happened. Yeah, that's what happened to me.
Yeah.
I was throwing
Yeah.
smaller parties, and then I threw some larger ones, and then I threw a really big one. It was scheduled for November of 2001, and 9/11 happened,
Yep.
and we had a low turnout. But I remember when I entered the rave scene, it was like not as a participant or a raver, but rather as a promoter.
Mm-hmm.
I was treated very differently and attacked by all the other rave crews.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, wait a minute, I'm not stepping on your toes. I'm throwing parties when y'all aren't throwing parties. What's the big fucking deal here?
Right.
It was weird. Almost like there was this little club and somebody is coming in and not inside of the club. And so, hold on, we got to pay attention to this guy. And then I lost my ass on that night. I literally lost everything I had on that night. And I wound up owing the sound guy, and I wound up owing the security company. I wound up owing everybody. I went into a little bit of a depression. My girlfriend at the time decided that cookies and ice cream was the best remedy for that. I gained some weight. and so then I started a carpet cleaning business after that. There was no more money to recover from that situation. The event that came after us, though, and it was weird, it was Bad Boy Bill who was spinning. It was very strange. It was Bad Boy Bill, Little John, and some other rapper too. And I thought to myself, that's weird. I've never seen a situation like this where you have Bad Boy Bill and then you have a couple of rap artists doing the event. I go to the event and only like 30 people showed up. And so they canceled the event, and that was it. It was very strange. But this was all post 9/11, directly, like right after 9/11, November. So, I mean, at least
happening here in Austin.
At least I got some people there. We needed about 3,000 people to break even, 4,000 to make a profit. We got about 2,000, 2,200. So we wound up losing. I mean, I lost my ass, I didn't have all the money to begin with. I was counting on ticket sales at the door to pay people. Yeah.
So, I mean, there is, there's a lot of similarities between like the dance music scene and the alternative media scene, right? Like, think about some of the stuff that's happened to you guys over. You guys have been around a long time. First of all, I've been wanting to say this since we came on. I want to congratulate you guys. Like, you guys are some of the longest running that are like not bought out and bullshit and running the same scam on everybody for the past, just finding new people to do it. But I mean, I've like, I've been listening to you since your, AFR days.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
That was a long time
Thank
ago.
you.
Right?
Because
but think about all the things you've been through, all the bullshit people.
I appreciate the acknowledgement, because it has been a difficult journey, and disavowing a lot of the things that we thought we knew, and then it was. It's difficult because you lose audiences, you lose this, you lose that, etc. But you got to stay true to yourself, and that's what I learned in this journey. Above all, it doesn't matter what anybody says, it doesn't matter what anybody does, so on and so forth. Don't fall into the peer pressure of anything in any regard, and stay true to yourself. But a lot of people fall into the bullshit. The whole Corey Good thing. Everybody, Blue Avians. I had a friend at the time, he was drinking ayahuasca, and he was like, dude, I got in contact with the Blue Avians and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, George Kavassilas had told me prior to Corey Good coming out that he was approached, and he was approached to be the spokesperson for the Blue Avians, but he turned it down because it was a scam. And I knew this. George had told me this. He just told me, keep it to your. He said, you can talk about it, but keep my name out of it. Then he came on the show about a year or so ago, and he talked about it. So now I can say his name. But I knew the entire time that this was all one big scam. And so these people were like, oh, I'm in contact with the Blue Avians and this and that, and I'm like, this is some made up bullshit. That I know it's made up bullshit. Like I know, I have verifiable proof, at least to myself. Anyways, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on that rant. It's it's infuriating to see all these. What you said was
interesting. Right, your friend who was doing ayahuasca and made contact with the Blue Avian, right? Like, I have a theory about that goes to what we're talking about here, right? Because he's not the only one that had that experience, right? That's part of why the PSYOP works so well. Like, I think with all this shit going on with the frequencies, they're able to sort of broadcast a signal or a frequency that, like, when somebody reaches a certain vibration, which your body does when you're on ayahuasca or psilocybin or LSD, right? Like your frequency changes, right? And when somebody is, at a certain level, there can be something being broadcast. And I literally believe that your friend probably thought he did see Corey Good, right? Or he did see Blue Avian. Because I remember.
No, it's funny you say that, because that's what he said. He said, I saw Corey Good. He was in a bubble and this and that and blah, 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 before Corey Good even came out. And I was like, dude, I kept telling him, I was just telling him, dude, go inside. Don't go outside. Just go inside, okay? Forget about all these deities. Forget about all these beings. Forget about all that. Just go inside. Get the gnosis from yourself. I was trying to help him on his journey, and he was going, no, the Blue Avians are real. The Blue Avians.
Okay, but think about this, okay? Because he wasn't doing ayahuasca in the jungle. He was doing, it's a different jungle. It was the Bronx jungle, right?
Yeah. Oh, you know who I'm talking about. Okay.
Yeah. Right. All right. So think about, that's the most electrified
goddamn
city.
Fucking phonies out there. Anyways,
in
I'm
the
sorry.
United States, right? That's the most electrified city in the United States. There's all sorts of towers and frequencies and cell towers and stuff like that. They know that there's people in that city getting high, right? But I mean, if you're just constantly broadcasting something at a certain frequency, that if somebody reaches that level within their own body, they're going to see that. And you're about to launch this mind control of, the Corey Good operation and the Blue Avian operation and whatnot. It's going to work way better if people think that they've had this like amazing, think about like when you've had amazing visual experiences inside of your psychedelic stuff, right? Like it's meaningful. And when you're in a completely gridded out city and you've determined that there are people in this area that use certain substances, you can literally broadcast just to that frequency. And those people are all going to begin to see and experience the same thing. And that same kind of technology is another level of it is what we just experienced here, with the Astroworld kind of thing and some of the stuff that's been going on at events and parties and whatnot, right? Where people, seem to suddenly be on, there's a number of people seemingly on this like same wavelength or track that like other people don't seem to be aware of. And it's based on the frequencies in combination with what's going on inside of their body, and whether that be a psychedelic experience inside of their body or a jabber-dabber-do experience, right? It's kind of like triangulating a person, right? Like the difference, the biological makeup, the atmosphere, and then the frequencies being targeted, right? So
it's interesting you say that, because we were actually out in the middle of nowhere. We were 45 minutes away from Spokane, Washington, in between Spokane and Sandpoint. There was nothing out there. We were drinking ayahuasca out on the lake. There was nothing but the stars. There was nothing but the wolves. There was nothing but all of that. And the messages that we were getting from ourselves is everything is inside of you. You have the power inside of you. The gnosis is inside of you. The demons that you encounter in ayahuasca are visual representations of the demons inside of you, your traumas, this and that, et cetera, et cetera. Likewise, these entities that we encounter in DMT is parts of the consciousness which are awakening themselves. They're not external entities, but rather they're entities that exist within us, and it's just physical, or not physical, but visual manifestations of the ayahuasca trying to teach you something about yourself, not some other entity that's out there, so on and so forth. We got a completely different message, and we weren't inside of a grid. However, we were right down the street, and I didn't even realize this, from Lake Pend Oreille. And I don't know if you know anything about Lake Pend Oreille, but that's like the Area 51 of the Navy. It's the deepest lake in the United States, and they run fucking submarines there. And so during the wintertime, you can see subs coming up and then going down into that underground thing. And so we were like, are you fucking serious? Like, we can't even go out to the middle of nowhere in the lake and not be around some kind of military industrial complex bullshit? Ugh. It's a prison planet.
It's all around. I mean, you go out to like Joshua Tree or something, and you're like, wow, this is fabulous nature. And like the 29 Palms base is 12 miles away, right? Like, so it's hard. There's very little unfettered land at this point, but those experiences can be had. It requires like a certain amount of like knowing your own mind and like what is like if something funny is going on in a trip when I have one, I'm like, well, this is weird. Like all the trips are a little different, but there's like certain signatures that are the same, that you're dealing with like your own mind and your own psyche and whatever. And sometimes when something completely out of left field comes in, I mean, sometimes it's actual and genuine, but other times that's when I know I'm like, dealing with something funny, that there's something else sort of in the atmosphere or the environment or in the electric grid. And it's like, okay, pay attention to that. I can still find all the other parts. It's an awareness thing though, right? And when somebody either doesn't have good discernment or is a little naive or is desperate to find meaning in their life because they don't have anything going on that they can really sort of hold on to or work with or whatnot, sometimes people make meaning of something that is not really meaningful. And I know this from personal experience, right? It's taken me a while to get to know my own mind and both in the just regular everyday, completely sober Emily and in the psychedelic space, right? It's not for everybody. There's some people that definitely shouldn't do it.
Oh, I agree.
100%.
At first we put out an ayahuasca guide, how to make it, so on and so forth. Then we started getting messages, how do I make ayahuasca? And they couldn't even spell it. And I was thinking, okay, first of all, you need to learn how to spell it. After that, then we can talk about the rest.
Google.
And I realized that I shouldn't really be putting all that out there. But I remember just from personal experience when I came to the realization that there are no entities out there. There is no deities out there, or there are no deities out there. There's nothing but us. And I was like, wait a minute. So we're all alone in here? And the ayahuasca was like, no, look, you have the power. Okay. It's all these things that you think these spirit guides and everything are doing. Okay. It's inside of you. Harness that power. But I remember there was a period of time when it felt very lonely and almost like, and I don't want to say scary, but we'll just use scary for lack of a better term, because you come to the realization of you're all alone in this, but you are the ultimate power. And so it's that place. And I think a lot of people are afraid to step out of that and come to that realization, because it is, you have to go through that little abyss first before, from one point to the other. So I understand why people get stuck on that and get stuck on like external saviors and, so on and so forth. But I mean, just the amount of bullshit that's being sold. The Palladians, for example, Billy Meyer was the one that started that. And he was exposed over and over again. He would take pictures of 70s dancers on TV and then go and like show, hey, these are the Palladians. He would take a picture from a history book with dinosaurs and then say, hey, these are the Palladians took me to the past. All this nonsense. His wife came out and she's like, yeah, he's full of shit. He had a picture of a UFO doing forced perspective. And it was a trash can lid that was identifiable. And they're like, here's the trash can lid. Here's what he did to it and all this. And people are like, still to this day, I talked to the Palladians. I talked to them. I'm like, oh my God.
So it's funny that you bring up the Pleiadians, because like that's not something I ever talk about, but I did a Q&A live stream on my locals page earlier, and somebody asked me what I thought about the Pleiadians and about the Galactic Federation and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh, I don't think much about those things, right? But this is a weird thing that's right, like what you said, right? Like we hear all these stories of like these tall Nordic looking white aliens, and we're like, okay, like at least for me, it's like, this is ridiculous, right? But then like sometimes you have this weird experience. Like I was telling the girl, I was like, dude, this couple came into the restaurant I was working at one time, and they were odd, right? They couldn't get close enough to me. They were like trying to sniff me, and they weren't interested in anyone else in the restaurant. And they looked like what you think like Pleiadians are, right? And when they walked out of the restaurant, they like disappeared. So it's like, man, I don't even fucking believe in this fucking Pleiadians, but it's such an energy in the collective consciousness, right? That it almost can manifest whether you believe in it or not. And then you meet these people sometimes and you're like, well, damn, that looks like what they say a Pleiadian is, right? But completely, I mean, think about, have you ever like when you're, I mean, I know you guys have mostly done ayahuasca, and for me, it's been mostly like mushrooms, but like, there's been times when I'll be like on a mushroom trip and I'm focused like on some corner in the wall where the light is reflecting a certain way. And it's just a corner in the room with light hitting it in a certain way, but you're seeing all of these like sort of faces and sort of images and whatnot. And it's like, it's very detailed, but you also know that it's just the light reflecting off the corner of the room. And this is like the kaleidoscope of your own mind, right? And this is sort of what you're talking about. It's all of these like inner energies and whatnot that also like relate to sort of like geometry and perspective and light and sound and whatever. And it can literally be projected onto anything in front of you, right? Have you ever kind of focused in on something like that when you're tripping?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know
trip on out all night.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I wanted to get into that. There were a couple of experiences that I had, and one in particular that kind of piqued your interest at the very beginning of this journey. I was talking about an experience that I had with these tall whites and being taken on this ship. So, how long do you have? Because I know you're a couple hours.
I'm good. I'm good now.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. If you don't mind, let's take a quick break. I need to grab a little bit of coffee, and I want to get into that because we've had visions of grays, we've had visions of tall whites, we've had experiences with all of that, and then I also want to talk about my lab abductions. So I kind of scrapped that project, but I got those two released, Bullshit on Parade and Sniffing in the Name of. And
they're very good. Yeah.
Well, thank you. So we're going to get back to Emily Moyer here in just a quick moment. Somebody said, Chris, you should make some kind of little ayahuasca or something that goes in coffee or tea. And I thought, that's great. We actually did something very similar to that. We actually have taken the ayahuasca vine from the Amazon. It's the only place in the world that this grows. And we have infused it with 99% pure CBD oil, and we call it Aya Life. And we've noticed that the reviews that we're getting have been phenomenal. I mean, we can't make any claims, and all the reviews are making claims, and we're like, right. Damn it. But one of my favorite stories is Grandma was in hospice, and one of our listeners who purchased it started giving it to her, and she was just not moving anymore. Started giving it to her, and after about 3 days, he comes to go visit her in hospice, and she's up playing cards with the nurses, and she's like laughing and all of that, and she wound up passing away shortly after. But he said, man, Aya Life, it gave me a little bit of extra time with my grandmother. We've gotten more than one review like that. Another one where Grandma she wasn't wanting a garden. She was kind of winding down, all of that. And she starts taking it, and she is reinvigorated again. I mean, what was the most recent review we got? Somebody purchased it for their father, and their father had cancer and drove himself to every single one of his treatments after taking Aya Life and beat the cancer. And we're not saying that there was any connection with the Aya Life, but what we are saying, I mean, from the review, from the person, this is from them, not us. It gave him the energy and put him back in balance to be able to go through that process. And he drove himself to every single one of his treatments. So it's been phenomenal the way it's changed people's lives. And I know me personally, I have back pain, neck pain. Cherie has a condition called EDS. It's one of the most painful conditions in the world, and even more painful than cancer. And that's the reason why we made it. We made it for her because at the time she was in pain management, and they wouldn't let her test positive for THC. And so she was taking another CBD oil. It wasn't working very well, and she tested positive on a drug test. And the doctor was like, are you smoking pot? And she's like, no, I'm taking this. And the doctor said, I'm all for CBD, but I just can't have you testing positive for THC. And we were like, okay, we got to find a solution where we can solve this problem. And we came up with this formula, and I actually got the formula out of the ayahuasca space. I mean, actually, drinking ayahuasca. But ayahuasca is made up of two different components. It's made up of the ayahuasca vine, which is the healer plant, and it's made up of the chacruna, which is the helper plant, which you would imagine it's backwards, because the chacruna is what creates the psychedelic visions and everything like that. But they consider the ayahuasca the healer. So we've taken this very ancient medicine, combined it again with another ancient medicine, medicinal cannabis, and extracted both molecules from there, infused it into USDA certified organic coconut oil, and a few other things. We're not going to give away the whole recipe here, but the reviews that we've received have been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I had no idea that I was going to do this. We gave it to the pain management doctor, and she gave it to her husband. And it worked so well for her husband that the pain management doctor herself, she was taking the one little flyer that we gave her and making Xerox copies of it and giving it to her patients. And we're like, hold on. Let's get you some nice, printed flyers and all of that. But least. it was remarkable to see even the pain management doctor. And with EDS comes a lot of pain. And so Cherie has used a lot of NSAIDs. I don't mean to speak like you're not here. But anti-inflammatories. And those will kill your kidneys. They'll kill your liver. Yeah. They'll kill all of that. And everybody that has been using it has been saying that they've gotten off of NSAIDs completely. Tennis elbow, all kinds of stuff. It's really phenomenal. And it's really become a community that we've built. I mean, it's remarkable, the love that we get from everybody from Aya Life and BTV and everything like that. So what we've done, and we're not going to do this for too much longer, and there's a reason for this. We're doing a buy one get one free because we started this at the beginning of the whole COVID situation, because we came across an article in the National Institute of Health that said that people were dying of COVID due to cytokine storms. And then we found another article from the same source, and this is government documents, that CBD prevents cytokine storms. So we were like, hey, we got to get this out to people. And we've been using this consistently, and through this whole thing, no mask, washing our hands just like regular, and we haven't really paid attention to this pandemic that we find ourselves in. But I think it has something to do with this, and so we wanted to get it out to as many people as possible. And we said we were going to do this promotion until the pandemic was over. It hasn't ended yet.
Hasn't ended.
God damn it!
18 months.
But
it's been 2 years almost.
If you go to the cart and you go to the single bottle, and you have to put multiples of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, however many you want. We'll put multiples of 2. Actually, I got 12 in there. Okay, why not? Let's do 12. And go to the checkout. I think I have more in my cart than 12. No, actually, I do have 12. Comes out to $708 for 12. Type in coupon code BTVTRIBE, BTVTRIBE, all lowercase. Hit apply. And you get buy one, get one free right there. We ship worldwide as well. And when we ship outside of the United States, number one, it's got no THC in it whatsoever. So you're not going to test positive if you have a drug test for your job or, anything like that. But number two, when we ship overseas, we only put Aya Life on the bottle, so we don't put CBD or anything else like that. So we've had no problems getting it to people. The only problems we've had is delays with USPS and shipping problems that are outside of our control. But we do same day shipping, free shipping here in the United States as well. So BTV Tribe. But we can't do this for very much longer because we're about to open up an affiliate program for people because people have been asking us, hey, I want to be an affiliate, and I want to be able to offer them something. So we're doing a buy two, get one free moving forward because we don't want to undercut all of our affiliates. We don't want to give our affiliates a buy two, get one free coupon and then us have a buy one, get one free coupon. We just can't do that when we launch the affiliate program, which will be in the next week or so. So anybody that wants to promote Aya Life and put it on their website too, we like to share, everything with everybody. That's what it's all about. It's all about community. So once we start doing that, we've got to cut off the buy one, get one free. So if you want to take advantage of that now, and what I was actually thinking for our current people is we might start a little subscription thing where you can sign up and get the buy one get one free and get it on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
And kind of like grandfather people into that, but I don't know how that's going to work moving forward. But it's a 500 milligram formula of 99% pure CBD. And for $59, you're getting 1,000 milligram bottle, which usually goes for $99 to $150. It's ridiculous. I mean, what they're charging is absolutely ridiculous. So we can do it because we just do it for our tribe. We don't do it for large masses out there. So we do have that. So let's get back into it. lot of people are talking about being in pain in the chat room, and one other beautiful review that we got is she wrote, and she said, I really love you, Chris and Cherie. I bought 8 bottles and it's not working for me. Can I return them? And Cherie had a procedure, and we didn't check the emails for about a week.
Right.
Which should never happen. It should never happen in the course of doing business, ever. So I apologize for that. 5 days later, she wrote back, and she said, never mind, I don't want to return these. This is working great for me. I just needed to give it a couple days. That is the one I'm most proud of.
Yeah, that's the best review ever.
I realized that it's not mind over matter. It's life over mind over matter.
Perfect.
Because she thought that it wouldn't work for her, but she kept taking it anyways. So anyways, let's get back into this because, people were talking about the ayahuasca space in the chat room as well. Psychedelics has been a big part of my life from the time I was 14 years old. I've journeyed in many different places, many different directions. I've seen a lot, and Emily has watched our journey from the very beginning. And like I said, we probably crossed paths at that party airport. But when I was about 22 years old, I had this experience. I was still in the rave scene. I wasn't really, thinking about UFOs at the time. I wasn't thinking about aliens. I didn't have the mindset that I have now. So this wasn't in my consciousness. But one day I'm laying in bed, and all of a sudden these doctors come into the room, and I'm elevated on this invisible gurney. And I remember I had these double doors, and the double doors opened up, and they took me out of the double doors. And then I lost consciousness, and then I woke up, and I'm sitting in a doctor's office, and he's got my arm on the I'm going to put my arm on the screen because this is actually very coincidental here. He puts my arm on the desk, and he's talking to me, but his face is blacked out. It's blurred out, and there was 1 or 2 behind him, and I can feel the presence of some more behind me. And right where I have my tattoo, as a matter of fact, I didn't even make this connection until I'm telling this story now. They stick something in my arm, and they're talking to me telepathically, and they're like, hey, what are you afraid of? What are you afraid of? And I'm like, I'm not afraid of anything. I just don't understand what's going on. I'm in this groggy state. I'm like, I'm just confused. I don't understand. And they're like, it's already over. See, there's nothing to worry about. And I'm out again. Then I'm up again, and I'm in this dentist chair, and I've got this thing on my head, and it's like a countdown timer. And there's this doctor working on some machine off in the background, and if I could blank my mind, I could make this countdown timer slow down, but I couldn't make it stop, and there was really nothing I could do. I mean, I was fighting it, but the countdown timer finally got down to 0, and then I was able to get up and walk again, and I hit this window or invisible barrier, something like that. And he comes and he grabs me, and again, I'm out again. And then I wake up, and I'm in my living room. And but it's not my living room because the couch felt the same. I had this old couch at the time, and it was just this really rough material. It felt the same. My coffee table was the same, but I noticed there was no walls. I had this big Greek painting on the wall right behind my couch, and there was no walls. And I could see the depth of this room, and this depth, I could see a light way off in the distance. So I could tell this room was very, very large, and there was this light projecting down on what looked to be my living room, but it wasn't my living room. And this apparition appears to me, and she's this woman, and she's wearing this red dress. She's got this flower headband on, but I could tell she was kind of floating. And she says, "Don't worry, you've just been tested." And I was like, "Tested? What?" And then I feel these hands on the back of my neck, and she says, "Whatever you do, don't turn around, and you won't remember a thing." And I said, why would I not want to remember this? I mean, I didn't say that. I was thinking that, why would I not want to remember this? I turn around and I see these 3 tall whites standing right there. And I went to scream. And I remember the scream was coming up, and right before it came out of my mouth, I woke up in my bed. But I didn't wake up. I was sitting in my bed. I don't even remember getting up. There wasn't that asleep to awake phase, nothing at all, period. So Emily heard me talking about the story, and she said, "Have you ever heard of my lab abductions?" And I said, "No, I haven't. What is that?" So that's what got Emily's attention first and foremost. And then we had a few other encounters with Greys later that we might get into. So if you're watching on youtube.com/Beyond the Veil, a majority of this show has probably been cut because I've had to talk about some stuff that violates the terms and conditions. So 4 hours and 13 minutes is the entirety of the show. You can find that over at patreon.com/BTV Tribe down there. Of course, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel and catch all the shows live. And yeah, thank you very much to everybody that tuned in. Thank you to all the super chats. Thank you for all the freaking awesome comments in the chat room. You guys and gals have just been on fire, and I love being with my tribe. We need to do more shows more often, and we will. We're going to start doing shows every Thursday, 7 o'clock p.m., or we're going to try to do them every Thursday, 7 o'clock p.m., and the occasional shows just like off the cuff, but we really need to get on a good schedule, and I need to start allocating time for different things in my own personal sphere here, because there's a lot to go over and very limited time too. So kiss the one you love right now. You never know last time is going to be, and we'll see you even further beyond the veil. Love you.